Hey, who turned out the lights? Overdue Doctor Who review, and this one, as per usual, brought to you by the Radio vs. the Martians podcast, hosted by Mike Gillis and Casey Dorn. They have a rotating stable of guests, and they talk about all manner of pop culture geekiness, from the mainstream to the niche. They'll talk Star Wars to wrestling to Batman to the oeuvre of Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's fun, it's free, and it's worth checking out. RadioVersusTheMartians.com or wherever you get your podcasts. So, I've been waiting for this one. Silence in the Library and the Forest of the Dead. This is one of my favorite modern era stories. I think this two-parter is phenomenal. It has my favorite modern era companion. It has the introduction of River Song, and I know not everyone likes River Song. I do, and I especially love her introduction. I think the story is cool. It's got a lot of neat twists in as it goes about, and I really like the Vashta Nerada. I like the concept of them. I like the way they're executed, the way they're explained. This is just really, really good. And yeah, this is mostly going to be me gushing. I do have some nitpicks, to be fair. But yes, mostly gushing. So first of all, the library is a awesome setting. A place that is just nothing but stacks and stacks and stacks of books. That's a great setting, especially for something with a slight horror twinge to it. Because if you've ever been in a library when it's empty or feels like it's empty, it's a little eerie. It's a little spooky. I mean, I like to think there's a reason that opening scene in the original Ghostbusters happens in a library. I think it works really well for that. So we've got the Doctor and we've got Donna with their awesome banter. I'm pretty sure this is the first instance of us noting that the sonic screwdriver doesn't work on wood. And Donna, catching her little observations about the world, like realizing that the exit would be near the little shop they were in, because they always put the little shop near the exit. But then she gets sort of taken out of the story, and she gets her own little sub thing going on, which, okay, I always understood that was sad, like even when I saw this for the first time, but, being a parent now and watching Catherine Tate break down when her children fade from existence because she doubts that they're real. Man, oh man, she nails that. It is heartbreaking. There's a number of stuff about this episode that chokes me up. There is that. Oddly, I don't remember choking up at this before. I choked up a little bit when the Data Ghost is getting explained with what is left of Miss Evangelista, and Donna sort of reacting to that and trying to help her, just talk her through her last moments. And yet, like Donna, I think in the past when I've talked about Donna, I've talked a lot about, how good her banter with Tennant is, about how quick-witted she is, about how snappy and sassy she is, and she is all those things, and fantastic at being them, but honestly, Donna is an endless well of empathy. It's really impressive. She goes out of her way to understand the people that they run into. More than Tennant does, and I think more than a lot of other modern era companions. I mean, you wanted to compare her to, say, Rose. Rose would sometimes act like the other people that they would run into were interrupting her adventure, whereas Donna, like, she makes these connections, and you can tell that it hurts her sometimes, like with Miss Evangelista, but that's what makes it powerful. And so that stuff was really great. And yeah, River's goodbye chokes me up. More so now that, I've gotten more time with her and I can now view this properly as the end of her story. Even though it's the earliest point in the Doctor's timeline, it's the end of hers. And it's, you know what it is in that moment? It's when he says time can be rewritten and she snaps at him. Not those times. Not one line. Don't you dare. Because she would rather die than lose that. And at even the hint that he might undo that. Oh, no. But she's still terrified. That's good stuff. And since I've kind of gotten there naturally, we'll transition off of Donna. We'll talk River. I think this is a terrific introduction to her. And as far as her whole premise and her whole deal of meeting the Doctor out of order, this establishes it really well. She's got good banter with Tennant. She is flirty, but not excessively so. There's like a handful of moments that are overtly flirty, but it's not laid on quite as thick as it is sometimes in her later appearances. But there's it's sort of undercut with a layer of sadness here, because this is the time that she's been dreading. That time that she sees the Doctor and he doesn't see her. He doesn't know who she is, and she's never had that. And all the time she's known him, he's always recognized her. And this is the first time that he doesn't know her, and she gets hit with that. You can see it in her performance. Oh, that's really good. It's got a really good supporting cast as well, which the best two-parters do. That's not to say that there aren't, single episode stories that have good supporting cast, but in my experience, most of the best supporting casts are in good two-parters because it gives you more time to get to know them. Characters like Anita and Other Dave and even Lux, honestly. I empathize with him by the time the story's wrapped up. And even characters who don't even show up until the second half, like Lee McAvoy in Donna's whole sort of otherworldly thing. Or you know who else is great in this? Colin Salmon as Dr. Moon. First of all, I don't think I put him on my list of actors who'd be really good to play the Doctor. He would. He'd make a really good Doctor. Like, seriously, Colin Salmon is really great in general. But he's good. You know, the little girl is good. Does a very good job of sort of playing the exasperation of a child. I am going to come back to some of that stuff, though, because that's where some of my nitpicks come in. But there's the Vashta Nerada. And I've said before, they should never be brought back, and I stand by that. And yes, I understand they've been used again, I think in some novels or whatever. Fine, whatever, but I don't want to see them back in the show. I'm okay with them appearing again, in a novel or in Big Finish or what have you, because that's a fundamentally different medium, and I'd be kind of curious to know how that gets expressed in a non-visual medium. But I know how they work on the show, and I don't think they'll ever be as impactful as they are here. And they work really, really well. And it's such a cool concept. And I will always adore the line from Tennant when River asks, every shadow? He goes, no, but any shadow, which is actually scarier. Because if it's every shadow could kill you, or if it's every shadow would kill you, then, you're looking around going, well, I'm just screwed. But if it's any shadow could, then that brings all this uncertainty into it. And that is way scarier of having to make the decision to step into or cross a shadow and not know if you just signed your death warrant or not. That is good. That's a nice touch. Tennant's really on fire in this one, too. Playing so much. His confusion at River's song, and the way his face falls when she whispers his name in his ear. You see the impact of that on him. And I've complained about this as a general thing and as a moment before, but I do love here in this episode him facing down the Vashta Nerada and saying, I'm the Doctor and you're in the biggest library in history. Look me up. Because that whole thing of the Doctor turning people away at the mention of his name, it works for me less often than it does when I look at all the times that happen. And I dislike the overuse of it. I don't like how declarative he often is about this sort of thing. But I really love this moment because it feels much more like a last-ditch attempt as opposed to him coming in and assuming that his name is going to inherently change something. And also, he doesn't just say his name and they're like, the Doctor. He's like, no, look, you have the resources. You have the resources to look at everything ever written and ever recorded, connect the dots, figure out who I am. It's not that his reputation preceded him, which is what tends to happen in the later instances where things like this are brought up. It's that he says, look, you have access to all the information. Realize who you're dealing with. So it's not just his raw reputation. And I think that's the thing that bugs me in other instances. So that works for me here as well. And the music is great in this. It's got one of my favorite, possibly my favorite all-time Doctor Who track, which is The Greatest Story Never Told. There's almost too much good stuff to talk about. But I did say that I had nitpicks, so I will mention a few of them. There's one that is fairly nitpicky, and there's one that's more substantive. I'll get the nitpicky one out of the way first. There's a few too many instances of just lines getting repeated over and over and over again. And it's not like it's trying to hammer in exposition or anything, but between the suits with the people who got devoured by the Vashta-Nerada, and they have their one looped line of dialogue. So between that and between like alerts from the computer system, and then with like the faces on the stone. So like the very end of the first episode kind of exemplifies this, as you've got this, hey, who turned out the lights? Donna Noble has been saved. Hey, who turned out the lights? Donna Noble has been saved. And they're just layering on top of each other, and like it goes on too long. Like, if it had been condensed into, like, half the time that it kind of runs that, it would have felt like, oh my god, all this stuff going on, but it just keeps going. It's like, yeah, no, we got it. We got it. Could you stop? So that's a little annoying. But the more substantive complaint I have is about the young girl in the computer. So, it's not about the concept. Down with the concept. It's not about the performance from her. She's solid. It's not about the ins and outs and the logistics of how this plays out. No, I buy it. If it's going to basically function like a young girl's mind, filtering it through a dream logic at times in order for her to accommodate all these other people cluttering up her headspace, no, that works. That makes sense. Here's the thing that bugs me. So, at the very end, Lux says how his grandfather, this was his youngest daughter, and he couldn't save her body, so he saved her mind and used her as the basis for this computer. And he put her there, and he gave her every book ever to read, because she loved books. You know what's one thing we never saw her do in her little domestic home life that I guess is the interior of the computer? We never saw her read a book. She colors, talks with Dr. Moon, talks with her dad. She watches TV. She never picks up a book. Like, it's very strange to me that the core concept of what she is like, she was this young girl who loves books, but we never see her reading a book. Like, I'm not saying that books necessarily were going to be able to be the whole thing, because I do think enough sort of depends on her use of the TV remote control that it would have been hard to come up with a book equivalent. But honestly, just like, why couldn't she, like, at one point she's coloring, and the TV and the phone starts ringing. Why couldn't she be reading? Why is she coloring? Why isn't she reading? Why doesn't, like, the TV come on and she sees the people on there, like, and it's interrupting her reading? Just show her with a book. That really does annoy me, because, like, I feel like they really missed a trick on that. And it feels like a glaring plot hole in a way. And I know it's not really, but, like, that one really annoys me. But I say really, it obviously doesn't ruin the story for me, because I love this story. I love the pace. I love the cast. I love the sense of fun and adventure, yet the threat and the fear, it is all just wonderfully intermingled in this terrific self-contained story that also sets up a character who's going to get to be recurring and have a larger story across the whole thing, and yet at the same time in this introductory story it still feels like a complete experience. I love this two-parter, and even with nitpicks, this is just epic. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. You've seen it. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts were, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a whole bunch of stuff to do down there as well, because there's buttons and links, and you can subscribe and support me on Patreon, etc., etc., etc. So links down below. Check them out. Click on them. They'll take you all sorts of places. But you also don't have to. Like, I definitely appreciate it, but I'm not going to tell you what to do, because at the end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. So until next time, this council is adjourned.